Next on The Professional Rule Breaker.
I am Anika Jackson from Your Brand Amplified, and I love listening to The Professional Rule Breaker because I feel like I'm having coffee with a group of friends who are also experts, and they're so authentic, compelling, engaging, and inspiring. And it makes me want to go out and take on the world. So you should too.
So welcome back to the Professional Rule Breaker Show. I'm your host, Kathy Walterhouse, and today we have an expert in communications and marketing. She has been in marketing communications for over 25 years, and I'm going to tell you right now, she doesn't look like it at all. Like she could be old enough for that. She also produces and hosts Your Brand Amplified podcast, which is in the 0.5% worldwide top podcast. She's also a graduate level professor at USC Annenberg and co-produces and co-hosts the USC Mediascape series and a podcast. And on top of all that, she is the VP of PR at Full Capacity Marketing and a best-selling author. I mean, this girl's got it going on. So I want to welcome to the show, Anika Jackson.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here. Just the name alone and your energy.
Well, I have a feeling with everything that you've done, you're a rule breaker too. So we'll talk about that in just a bit. But I kind of want, because I did some research and there's so much synchronicity, I would say, between us, except you obviously know PR and communications probably a million times better than I do. So I want to start off with PR because I've actually gotten those questions before as far as like, what should I do? So, because I think that's really important about attracting the right customers. So are there any basic steps, like for the major newbies like myself, when it comes to PR that you could impart on us?
Yeah. Wow. It's a big question, and it's evolving because of course AI tools are changing a lot of things very quickly. Of course, I'm here on a podcast and I couldn't recommend podcasts more highly as a great method for finding your ideal customer, client, making those connections, building your network, and then also having content that you can share across all your platforms. What I also love about it is somebody else is saying that you are an expert in what you're trying to tell people you are, right? So it's that third party validation, which is what PR really is. So I'm a very strong believer in the PESO model, which is paid, earned, shared, and owned media. So everything needs to be multi-purposed, whether it's a blog post or whether it is a public relations activity. So one of my biggest tips is a lot of times people are scared to get themselves out there. I've seen it a lot with clients I've had where they say, I'm ready for PR, but then they don't want to do the interviews. So I start
Which
them
is
out
like,
with
what? When you hear that, right?
I start them out with baby steps. All right, let's go on some smaller platforms. If you are a woman in business, there's a great magazine called Crystal Spot, and Crystal is a dear friend of mine in Kansas City. Her magazine gets about 50,000 downloads, which I think is really good for
That's a lot, actually, for a
yeah.
magazine. Yeah.
So, and she has a podcast that goes along with it. But I have a really easy Google form I can send people to fill out an interview for her, and then add pictures. And that's a lot of the way interviews are going now. A lot of the platforms are sending a questionnaire. You fill it out. You have to make sure it's grammatically correct and it presents you in the right light. But those are really easy ways to start honing your story, figuring out what talking points you would have if you were actually speaking to a journalist or on a podcast. So I'll start there. Let's start with some things that won't be heavy lifts, that might still get great audiences and great traction and will still be in the right genre for your customers. And so that's how I like to get people warmed up, right? And then you
Okay.
can start going after bigger and bigger platforms.
Okay. Well, it's interesting because one of the things you said is like the talking points, which I think is hard sometimes for people to be really succinct in what it is that they're
Oh yeah.
saying, in addition to even like a bio. I mean, how do you recommend that people I don't know if there's a way for them to learn or if there is just a question you should ask yourself before you put the talking points out there. I just noticed with what gets sent to me that there's a lot of massaging with certain people, not with you, but with
Okay.
certain people that I've had to do to get, I wouldn't say necessarily hooks in there, but just things that really make sense.
That's such a compelling and interesting question because I noticed that in your content also on the sales side, you talk about how are you speaking to your customer? Are you really sharing the benefits of what you're doing? And I think a lot of times people come on even podcasts. I have guests who will just talk about what they do. Okay, but that's not, I need the story. How are you benefiting the people who are listening so they are incentivized to buy? Right. So I think that is part of it, repositioning everything that you're doing. So a lot of times I go back to brand first. If somebody doesn't have a strong brand story, they don't know who they are, they don't have that foundation of their mission, vision, values, their purpose for existing, then I don't think anything else can be as successful, whether it's sales, marketing, PR, any of that. Because if you don't have that, you don't really know who you're talking to or who you want to talk to. You don't know where the best platforms to find them, and if the best podcasts, the best magazines, the best social media. And so I usually take people back to brand. Okay, let's get here. Let's set up a really strong foundation. And then out of that, we get your messaging, right? Out of that. So I have worksheets and things like that. And I always, I know we're just starting the interview, but I always love to do free strategy sessions and I'll answer questions about PR or marketing or brand or podcasting or teaching or any topic.
Well,
So,
I am so glad you mentioned brand. That was actually going to be one of my questions as well too, because I mean that's important, right? If people don't know who you are, how can you actually attract the people that you want? So again, baby steps. What would you suggest when someone is just starting out
mhm.
to put their brand, I guess their brand image is, I don't know if that's the right word for it, but
Yeah.
to
So,
put that together? Hey there, you know I'm all about making a big difference, making this really big impact. So I am so thrilled to introduce to you today's podcast sponsor. They are the very last U.S. family-owned manufacturer of consumer goods products, products that you use every single day and you run out of them every single day. And on top of that, their products are healthier and safer for you, and they have been made here in the great USA. My family made the switch, and I am so happy that we did, and so is everyone else in the family because the products are amazing. So while these big giant corporations are just getting bigger and so many small businesses are really struggling to survive, why not help me in rooting for the underdog? And you know, I'm all about the underdog instead of these giant 11 conglomerates that control 97% of the North American consumer goods market. So if you're ready to make a difference and switch away to something bigger and better, go to switchaway.com/rule breaker, drop your information, and one of my friends will reach out to you directly. And let's all switch away together to better quality products that are healthier and safer for you and support family owned businesses, because together we can rewrite the business landscape and make a difference one person at a time.
so you start with your brand blueprint. So that is really looking at why do we exist? What is our purpose? Then what is our vision? What do we want the world to look like? What's our pie in the sky ideal? Then the mission is what are the actionable items that you'll do to enact your vision and your purpose? And then that flows into, okay, well, what are your company values or your personal values? Because you want to make sure you're showing up with those values. And out of that, it then when you're talking about brand identity, I think it's much easier to get to brand identity because you already, from your values, you can see what colors really tell my story, what images evoke the emotion I want when people are thinking about me. And so those are some easy steps to start with. And you can Google brand blueprint and a lot of stuff will come up on that. And so I always start there, and then that helps you figure out the rest. And then there are some great websites if you want to just see what people are saying. You can ask questions, you can look at Google Trends,
Mm.
look at keywords so you can see what your competitors are saying about themselves, how they're positioning themselves, then you can see, okay, that resonates or that doesn't. Oh, I see a place I can do better in messaging than they are. And then when it gets to jumping ahead to looking at PR opportunities, there are websites. Featured.com is a great one. You can do a free or a paid subscription, and you put in your keywords and your profile, and you'll be able to see what journalists are looking for. What kind of questions do they have? What do they want answered? And then that also can kind of help you formulate what is going to be the most compelling part of my story to share.
Okay. Okay. That's great. I mean, that's actually, I think if people just started just doing that alone, they'd be miles ahead as well. And I like the explanation that you gave. Like, really, it's almost like do this, do this, do this as well. So I want to see, I have a feeling you and I are the same on this, but for people that kind of do a smattering of everything,
Mm.
so they're a generalist versus being a specialist, what I would say, first off, what do you think is better? And then what do you recommend?
Oh, if you are going to work for somebody else and you're in entry level position, they're typically looking for specialists. I've had a hard time getting jobs for other people because as I'm not very specific on one thing. I've done a lot of different things. I've had 9 careers. But if you're looking at going into an organization at a more senior level, they want the generalists. They want people, which is why I can't get hired for a marketing manager or director level, but can get hired for a VP level because I know enough about a whole bunch of things that I can think of the strategy overall for clients and for companies. And so it's an interesting push pull. I definitely, especially with the way things are going with marketing, with sales, with all the AI tools, I think you have to be more of a generalist and know a little bit about a lot of things. Even if you're going to be in PR, you need to understand and be able to work with the people who are going to run ad campaigns or do the social media. And a lot of PR involves influencer marketing and social media at this point. So I don't see how people can get away from that nowadays, unless you are going to code AI, then that's a very specific thing. But then there's another job called data translator who will take what the coder and the computer science people are doing and translate it with the executives and the strategy and kind of be the go-between. So there are all these things that are coming up nowadays, but I think with the way the world is moving, that being a generalist will serve you much better.
I think it's almost like being a jack of all trades. Or maybe it's what about being open? And if you don't know something, you can go out there, either find somebody that knows it better than you, or go and learn about it.
Exactly.
And just being open to being able to do that.
I was just going to say lifelong learner. That's really what we're talking about here. And that's something I've been able to pick up new skills. I'm getting my master's right now. I'm getting an MBA with a specialty in AI because I know that's a field that's really
That's a
important
hot,
to us.
yes, field right now.
So,
Yes.
but if you'd asked me 4 or 5 years ago that if I were going to be a college professor and a podcaster and holding workshops, I would not have thought this was where my life would end up. So being open, 100%. And that's what I love about the professional rule breaker title, because I feel like I can instantly connect with that. I'm like, all right, she has not taken the traditional path.
No.
She wants to look at things differently. She wants to explore, and that's my person, right? And so I
Yeah.
think that brand helps people know whether they're for you or whether you're for them. Or
Right.
maybe if they're a more traditional person, they might immediately know, okay, that's not who I am. I need to go in this other safe space.
Right, right. If somebody is very rigid and just wants to do things one certain way, yeah, I'm not your person for sure. But if you're looking to think outside the box, and I think Anika, I think you're just like that too. Think outside the box, learn new things, be open to new things, new strategies, new tools, new whatever it is, all with the goal of getting to that vision, that whatever, that thing that you are looking to do. So I saw in the pre-show notes you'd written something about, I think you said like you had 9 lives or nine something. And you just mentioned that as well too. And I think you learn a lot from doing other things, but I'd love to hear what your key takeaways were from, when I think of 9 lives, I think of a cat. And I kind of
Right.
think I'm kind of like a cat with 9 lives too. So
Yeah, well, there have been periods in my life when I have not been in the traditional workforce, but have done entrepreneurial things that revolved around my daughter's schedule and also been more on the philanthropy side. But I can say that those skills that I learned in volunteer leadership have served me well in the business world as well. So there is so much great that you can take from each piece. And I think one of the biggest things is to learn to trust your gut and not get swayed by all the shiny things that other people are trying to offer you, because that has definitely been something I've fallen for multiple times of, oh, I don't feel confident starting this business on my own. I need to have a partner.
mhm.
Right. And then sometimes it works out really well and sometimes it doesn't.
Doesn't.
And or, oh, I'm really focused on building out this program and working with these kind of clients. And then, oh, but this other person's offering me this money in this role. And they seem like they'd be a good fit as an organization. They're not always.
Mhm,
Obviously I'm speaking more to the entrepreneurs, but I think going back to the topic of brand, even if you are interested in going to a traditional corporate organization, you need to be thinking about your personal brand, your values, and are you going to end up being happy there? Is it a place you can see yourself for the long term? And if not, you might learn a little bit, but you're probably going to walk away from that company not feeling so fantastic and so great. You might be able to find another fit right away that, if you just give yourself a little more time or don't jump at the first opportunity that's offered to you. And I've also learned that I am always an optimist. And so sometimes that has meant I've tended to hire too fast and say, oh, I need to really make sure everybody's taken care of before taking care of myself. And all these lessons that they tell you, but until I'm one of those people, like, if I don't experience it myself, maybe a few times, the message is probably not going to get through this head. So,
yeah, I love that you're an optimist. And I think as an entrepreneur, you have to be an optimist. Because
mhm,
if you go into something thinking, this is not gonna work,
right.
it's not gonna work for sure.
Exactly.
Versus, this is going to work and I'm gonna learn, I'm gonna do whatever it takes to get the job done.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Big, big difference. I love that you're an optimist. I am too. Somebody said that to me the other day that I'm like always like this eternal optimist. And I'm like, I think I kind of like that. Because if nothing else, I think you're going to be happier if you're an optimist versus, a pessimist. So,
And what you said, other people are going to give up before we are, or
right.
they might say, I don't know if you should really do that. But if we have strong convictions and feel like we're on the right path for what we want to do, we'll keep going no matter what other people have to say about it.
Absolutely. It's almost like that edge
Yeah.
because if you're willing to give up early, I mean, a lot of times the success is literally like right there
Yeah.
and you're going to miss out. But if you are going to do whatever it takes, that almost like winning, I mean, I call it a winning mindset. I think that that is so important. My son just played in a major golf tournament this last weekend, and he was in third place going into the last day. And he was chasing the leader all day long. But he told me before he started, he goes, I'm going to win this. I'm winning this. And I knew he was going to win, even though I was
Oh
biting
my
my
gosh.
nails a little bit. I knew he was going to win, and he did. He won like a really big major golf tournament.
I
And
was I was actually having dinner last night with my in-laws. I'm in Philly this week at a country club
oh,
and
yeah.
saw if it's the big golf tournament that just happened.
So
And so
if he was playing in the AM tour
wow.
at the US Open
Okay.
and in Pinehurst
Okay.
is what he was playing in. And oh my gosh, it was really something to behold. So, but
I
yeah, it's that winning mindset of just chipping away every single day. Just chip away. You don't have to do something huge, right?
Right.
It's
Yeah.
just that one little thing that if you can, whatever that success nugget might be of the day, just chip away every single day.
And you mentioned something else, which is if you don't know it yourself, you can learn it or you can find somebody who does. And I never really understood until I just decided to be open to the idea of coaches. And I knew about mentors, and I've had some great mentors, but coaches as well. And so I've hired people who've been friends, who've become friends, who I met first through podcasting and said, "Hey, you're an expert in digital advertising in this format. Will you show me a little bit further behind the curtain? Because I know that you'll be able to tell me what really to do or what not to do. And that will make me better teacher. It'll also make me better with clients and with my own projects." And so I find so much value in whether it's informal or formal coaching, mentoring. I have several people who've been on my podcast. Now we hold like monthly or semi-monthly check-ins. We say, let's just have a Zoom meeting. What are you working on right now? What am I working on? How can we, is there anybody we can connect to each other? And then I have more formal groups that do that too. But I just, there's so much value in that. And we shouldn't be trying to do it all ourselves. We shouldn't be operating alone, but building those communities, that has probably led to the success that I'm seeing now with my podcast, with my business, because
Mhm.
I've been open to those. I've been eager to learn from other people and to embrace that and to share connections, not hold everything tight. Oh, nope, this is my person. You can't have them. Right. I think that's really important too.
I totally agree. And even in just in sales, having relationships with other people, they are going to know other people. So it's all about networking and getting to know other people because everyone has their own strengths.
Mhm.
You obviously, you're an expert in marketing and communications and PR versus I'm more of an expert in sales. And so we all have our own strengths. So I think if we all work together, accountability groups, like what you mentioned as well, doing those check-ins. Because if you say you're going to do something, if you told somebody you're going to do it,
Yeah.
guess what? You're probably going to do it. Versus if you keep it all to yourself, and then if you don't finish something, you're like, yeah, it's just me. And so I'll just do it tomorrow or something like that. I think accountability groups, networking groups are huge in the business world. And quite frankly, I think it just makes it more fun.
Oh, yes.
Because especially for entrepreneurs, sometimes we're on an island by ourselves.
Yeah. And the people that I meet, the experts that tell me things that I never would have known, or I would have had to spend so many hours studying, that has been fantastic part of the podcast journey, the networking journey, and then those are other people I can go to when I say, "Hey, I'm hearing this about AI, but you have patents in AI. So give me the real deal. Let's talk about this a little further. Can you help me?"
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Well, now that you brought AI, I wanted to ask your opinion on AI when it comes to marketing and communications. What do you
Uh,
think?
Every AI expert who I've met, who has been in the field for a while, who maybe has created, patents, who works with small businesses, says there will be two types of businesses in the future: those who embrace AI and those who no longer exist.
Hmm.
So I now there are a lot of tools out there. It's becoming, I know, like if you look at ad tech and martech, there are over 11,000 different platforms you can use. So it's not quite at that level, but it's moving there quickly. And a lot of people are trying to show that they have already implemented AI, whether it's marketing or sales. It's such a great tool to be able to like really see what value are you adding
Hmm.
to your consumers, to your customers. Where are they buying? Where can you incentivize them? How are you talking to them? How are you personalizing messages? And that's what we see on the marketing side. And I think probably on the sales side too, is that we're going to a world where we need more personalization, where people really want to know the specific use cases that will bring them joy by working with you or buying your product. And so, there are lots of AI tools. I actually used one last week where I recorded my voice so that, and it's not out in OpenAI or anything like that, but my team could go to that And if they need a quick snippet of me saying something, they can just type in what they want it to say and it'll have my voice
Oh, wow.
with my
Yes.
inflections and everything, right?
Mhm.
So
But does it really, does it sound like you? Because
it
I've heard a
does.
few and that some of it's robotic, but it
Oh,
does.
yeah.
All right, you're going to
Yeah.
have to
Yeah.
let us in on that secret, you know.
And that's these tools, they're going to simplify the time-consuming tasks, right? And that's what we need to really look. These are not things that they'll replace some jobs, but really they're going to replace tasks. You still need a human to oversee the tools. You still need a human for the strategy, for the implementation, for the creative expertise and thought. So it's not going to replace that part, at least not yet. But I'm also on the Intuit Small Business Council, and I got to go to Washington, D.C. in May and speak to this SBA, the Small Business Association, and to different members of Congress who are involved with small businesses about the need for mainstream America to have access to AI tools. And that
Mhm.
could mean small businesses getting different kinds of SBA loans that will help them build the infrastructure and pay for tools and classes to learn how to use them. It could mean that job centers where people are going to look for work teach people in AI skills. It could mean a lot of different things, but
Wow.
it's something that's really important, and that if Intuit, which has 10 million small business owners in their ecosystem, is saying we've been using AI, we've just called it something else,
Mhm.
right? To look at people's financial health and businesses' financial health, and to be able to do modeling in their system. They also own Mailchimp. They're adding all these things. But if they're saying that, then we know that we all need to be looking at what are ways that we can slowly start implementing and integrating AI tools into our work streams.
Yeah, I think if you're not doing I think you need to jump on the bandwagon, right?
Yeah,
And use AI. I mean, the tools, there's so many very simple tools that exactly what you said, it can help with the tasks so that you can focus on your zone of genius, whatever that is.
yeah.
Yeah. So I always ask this question of everybody, and I know you're already a rule breaker, but what makes you a rule breaker? Was there something that happened, or have you always been a rule breaker?
I've always been a mix of, well, I grew up in Kansas. My mom is from Asia. She came to California first for college, met my dad, ended up staying. So I'm Thai and Laotian and then European blend of all the different things on the other side. But growing up in Kansas, there weren't a lot of people who looked like me. Also
Mhm.
having an international family, my dad, military, built Air Force bases all over the world. So my dad grew up everywhere. So we had this kind of cosmopolitan outlook, but also in the middle of nowhere. I love Kansas,
I had a
but
very similar experience. I grew up in Iowa.
oh my gosh, I
So
love this.
probably not that far from you. I grew up in
Yeah.
Iowa. Same thing. My parents came from Cuba as well. So it's very
Yeah.
similar and more of a cosmopolitan view on things as well.
Mm.
But I'm sorry, I didn't mean to
I don't know. I love
interject.
that.
Yeah.
But so there was that, but then, and also, you know, I love learning. And so I was always wanting to learn. I wasn't happy just to be stuck with the status quo and do what everybody else did. I always wanted to learn and try new things. So that meant I was involved in all of the school activities, but I also wore combat boots. Right? I was the varsity cheerleader, but I also did the plays or a debate. And so I wasn't somebody you could pigeonhole. And that has that's like being a generalist. I mean, it can have its benefits and its downfalls, because later on I go, oh, there are some things I probably didn't need to do, but I needed to explore them to really say, okay, I've explored that. I'm good there. Let me move on to this new thing. So I think from that, I've always been that rule breaker. I've always been the person who just wanted to do things a little differently or have a different outlook, to the point where I've had really great jobs the last few years that I've left because I didn't feel like, we want to feel valuable for the work that we're doing. We want to feel like we belong to a team, the affiliation, all of that. And I've been in positions where I can sit here and get this six-figure check and not work
Mhm.
very hard.
Golden handcuffs.
Yeah,
Yes. Mhm.
but I'm not feeling fulfilled. And I really know that that's not my path. And so I haven't been afraid to just take the leap, jump, leave, and not have an exit plan, and then figure out what's going to come next.
Yeah.
So
Well, it's interesting that you said that. So do you think And I think I think a lot of entrepreneurs probably fall into this. So if you are working for someone else, you almost have to try not to make waves. Does that make any sense? Because you're always thinking outside the box. Hey, of all these different ways that you can make whatever process better, achieve more.
Mhm.
But sometimes in certain situations, I would say I wouldn't necessarily say it's frowned upon, but it's, as some people may not like it.
Oh,
I'm just
yeah.
trying to think, how can I
Well,
say this so
if you're the new
politically correct?
person and you're coming in at a higher level than some other people who've been in a
Hmm.
company, they might feel like you're analyzing their job and maybe going to, you know, let them go or bring in your own people or come up with new ways to do things that they don't think work for the rest of the clientele. So, yeah, there's so many just different scenarios, and that's part of entrepreneurship, and it's also part of being true to your own values and realizing I'm getting sick all the time. This probably isn't the right job for me. I probably need to go back to thinking about something else. And that's what I love about teaching is I have curriculums for my grad students. They have certain things they have to do, but my time with them, my 90 minutes a week with them in class is my time, and I can pull in other concepts and more about, like, I can talk about what happened yesterday when it comes to AI or digital marketing, so that they have more recent case studies like of the moment, and then we can have really candid conversations. And so even though there's some lines, right, that I have to toe, there's a lot of creative freedom within that.
Hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely. So, Annika, where can people find you?
The best place is to go to yourbandamplified.com. That is kind of the home for everything. And you can find me on LinkedIn pretty easily through that as well.
Love that. Love that. We'll be sure to have all of Annika's links in the show notes. And I really want to thank you. It was a lot of fun having you as a guest.
So
There's
fun.
so many topics. It was funny when I was doing research for this interview, prepping for this interview, I was like, wow, we could probably just spend an entire episode just on one thing. So we'll definitely have to have you back. Would love to delve a little bit more
Yeah.
into, gosh, there's so much PR and media channels and so many different things that are really useful to help entrepreneurs out there. But I'm so grateful that you were here on the podcast. And again, all your information will be in the show notes. And for everybody out there that's listening or watching, remember that you are special and you need to take what it is that you do. But I want you to think about something that Anika had mentioned very, very, very early on. There was so many good like nuggets in what we talked about, but look at how are you benefiting your customer? Or if you're a newbie and you're just starting out, how will you be benefiting your customer? And again, put out all the greatness that you have is like a stone in water, creating a ripple effect that only you can do and make a big change in the world. So thanks again. Thank you, Anika.
Thank you, Kathy.